Kia ora, you're listening to Crossing Currents, Aotearoa New Zealand Artists in Venice, a podcast series by Contemporary Hum produced with the support of Creative New Zealand. In this series, we'll be interviewing the Aotearoa artists presenting at the 60th Venice Biennale and its parallel events. I'm Elena Kafka, Managing Director of Contemporary Hum, and today I speak with artist Fred Graham about his inclusion in the 60th International Exhibition of the Venice Biennale, titled Stranieri Ovunque, Foreigners Everywhere, and curated by Adriano Pedrosa. For this edition of the Biennale, Aotearoa New Zealand decided not to have a national pavilion, which is only the second time there hasn't been a New Zealand pavilion since Aotearoa began participating in the Biennale in 2001. Despite this, there are an unprecedented number of Aotearoa artists featured in Venice this year, both within the Biennale and across the events taking place in the city at the same time. There are 4 Aotearoa artists and 1 collective featured in Foreigners Everywhere, which is an exceptional number since it's rare that Aotearoa artists are included in the curated section of the Biennale at all. Previous instances include Francis U. Pritchard in 2017 and Simon Denny in 2013. This year, those in the curated section represent an intergenerational mix of Māori artists, reflecting Pedrosa's interest in exhibiting Indigenous art, as well as including and expressing genealogical lineages between practitioners. Fred Graham is of Ngāti Koroki Kahukura and Tainui descent. He has been a key figure in the emergence and history of contemporary Māori art, with a practice spanning over 70 years. Fred's sculptures fuse Māori and European cultures, often combining traditional wood and stone with modern materials and focusing on themes inspired by Māori histories and pūrākau or Māori mythological traditions, as well as dealing with the loss of Māori land. Fred's work has been included in most major exhibitions of contemporary Māori art, including Te Waka Toi, which toured America in 1992, and Toi Tū Toi Ora at Auckland Art Gallery Toi o Tāmaki in 2020. In 2018, Fred received an ONZM for services to Māori art. At the time of our conversation, in June 2024, Fred was about to open a major solo exhibition titled Toi Whakaata Reflections at Te Uru in Tāmaki Makaurau, Auckland. I spoke with Fred Graham from his home in Waiuku, Aotearoa, New Zealand. I wondered, Fred, if we could just start by talking about how you were chosen to be featured in the Biennale.
Well, I don't really know, except that I was just told by my son that we're going to participate. And so I've got the age where, I do what I'm told. And no, it's when he mentioned it, I was very pleased because to be able to exhibit again with him was something special as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, of course. Had you exhibited with Brett before?
Oh, yes, we have, in New Zealand, mainly.
So this was the first time overseas?
Yes.
Did you have any contact with the curator of the Biennale, or was it all through Brett?
No, I left it all to Brett. I've got the stage of life, I'm old, I'm 95, and, I've got the stage where I'm sort of past getting excited about much these days. But, as long as I as a teacher, people have said to me, when you say you're an artist, people say, what do you do for a living? And in my case, I taught. And I'm very grateful because to be able to help young budding artists like Brett, my son, and others, because in New Zealand it's a pretty tough road to go on, to be successful really in any of the arts, whether you're a singer or an opera singer or a dancer. You usually have to go overseas to make a bit of a name for yourself and then come home.
Yeah, I want to ask you about your teaching, actually, in a little bit.
Yes.
Because that's really interesting. So you were saying that everything was organized through Brett. Did Brett help you choose the artworks?
No. We. I can remember when as a small child, a fellow who could just walk, he walked into the studio one day and picked up one of my small sculptures, and that became his teddy bear. And the other two siblings is Catherine, Gary, and Brett. And of course, we call them the KGB. They, the KGB, the other two had teddy bears, and he slept with this small sculpture. After he'd left the studio with this thing under his arm, I walked over to the studio and I said to his mother, "I've got some bad news for you." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Your youngest son, I think, wants to be an artist." And of course, being a mother, she said he can be whatever he wants to be. And I was typical. I said, "What's he going to do for a living?" And she said, "Oh, well, we'll sort that out later." So I've always been aware of trying to help young artists. I can remember one particular artist who's now prominent in New Zealand. That's what I said to his parents that I thought he could make it, and they said that, "What's he going to do for a living?" And I said, "Good point." So he went to art school. He was the top student at art school. Guess what his first job was? Postman.
Oh, of course.
He had postman. When he told me, I said, "Well, I hope I won't meet your mother and father for a while until you're established." But that's one of the joys I've had as an artist, to help young people achieve something in their art. And,
there's no doubt that you've been hugely influential on the following generations after you, and it's very special in this Biennale that, of course, you're exhibiting with Brett, and also exhibiting with some other younger artists like Mataaho Collective,
yes,
and Robert Yonke as well.
Yes.
That's really special.
Yeah, it is. It's a special, and especially for New Zealanders. That's one of the big things that are sort of we're well aware of in New Zealand, the Biennale in Venice.
Yeah, and what has it been like exhibiting at the Venice Biennale with Brett?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. With Brett now that he's getting established, I'm quite happy to move into the background, and I've always had been well aware of this quotation, today's headlines of tomorrow's fish and chip wrappers. And I said, I'm quite content to be a fish wrapper now that it's your turn now to take the stage while I gratefully retire into the, although I'm still working. As long as you're able to, you might as well keep going.
So you're still working, Fred?
Yes. It's something for the younger ones to aspire to, and so I've always encouraged them to look at work and say, I could do better than that, and I always say, well, just stop talking about it and do it.
Yeah.
Brett doesn't think I'm a very good artist because when any one of he or the other two would ask me to draw something, I'd always, if it was a donkey, I'd do 6 legs and 4 tails, things like that. And
right.
They'd always say, I can do better than that. That's terrible. And they'd go off and do their own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, the mark of a great teacher.
Yeah, it's like everything else. You get more thrills out of helping people than helping yourself, I think.
So you're also in the Biennale with other esteemed Māori artists who've also been teachers. So that's Sandy Adsett and Selwyn Wilson. How did you come to know Sandy and Selwyn?
We all sort of finished up teaching art through going to teachers' college. Each one of us had our own reason for going to teachers' college. And while we were there, because I don't think any one of us wanted to have a career in art because of being poorly paid and so on, and things being so uncertain. And so a lot of us became teachers, or decided we become teachers. And at that time, the people involved in the department were interested in various things. And one of the things they were interested in was art, making the art, and also looking at Indigenous art. And they certainly created this teachers' training scheme to teach art teachers, teachers. And that's how a lot of us became art teachers, and then eventually artists. And that's how, as a result of that, we also got to know each other. So that's how I got to know prominent artists in New Zealand like Rolf Utere and Cliff Whiting and Sandy Ansett, who's with me. And that's how we got to know each other.
Yeah.
And, of course, a big Maori, it just added another dimension. I think that's how it evolved. And the three of us were all what we're called art specialists in the schools.
Wow. So you were all teaching on programs designed to teach Māori art.
Yeah, well, we were sort of Maori's sculpture or carving was very restrictive in the sense that, it never told stories, but it told it had these what we call pose or statues. They did statues of the people involved, like rather than explaining why these people were famous. Maoris were very good at oratory because they had no written language, and the only other form of expressing things was the art. But then again, it was very, very restrictive, and as a result, I think probably of being restrictive, became very decorative, and so all the what we call pose or figures and that around the meeting houses, and so on, all carved figures of these various heroes from in Maori mythology and Maori stories, and so as a result, going to art school and or going to teachers' college and being involved in reading and sort of looking at people's work like Barbara Hepworth and Henry Moore and so on, and we sort of start looking at art from a different angle. And we sort of started to evolve our own form of art as a result of mixing both together and so on. Because to me, and as far as I'm concerned, we should be expressing life as the time we're living it, rather than talk about it. Because in turn it becomes history. That's how it actually happened. That we'd, had mixed the two cultures together.
So, being a teacher made you want to become an artist, or had you thought you might be an artist before you started teaching?
No. I just assumed, because my father worked in power stations, I just assumed that I'd finish up working at power stations. I really became a teacher by accident, going to teachers' college by accident, and because at the end of I was due to go out teaching, I said to the art lecturer that I thought I'd probably go to art school or something because I couldn't teach ordinary subjects. They'd created this new art specialising, but then I found that I really enjoyed it. The other thing, of course, was that because I'd played rugby sort of nationally and internationally, that I had no problem teaching. Yeah, because art's not usually associated with rugby.
It's very interesting that you put those two together.
Yeah. Because in my day, when I played first-class rugby, there were only two other artists that played first-class rugby at the same time. Three of us were friends. So I was just a normal artist to a lot of people. A normal person because I played rugby. Not someone with a paintbrush in his hand. And, anyway.
I wanted to ask you about the artworks that are in the Biennale. So there's 4 of them, which is quite a lot, actually. And so one of them is oil stick on board, that's Whititera.
Yes.
And then there are 3 carvings, which are from 1970, 1971. Do you remember what was happening in your life at that time?
Not really. One of the great things I've always been grateful for is my friends who encouraged me by liking my work and asked me to do something for them. A lot of the work that I did, if they hadn't asked me, would probably never been made. Normally, you have a reason for doing things, and so I've always been grateful for them. But one of the problems was that when I acquired a name, they wouldn't ask me anymore because it either cost too much, and I always used to say, "How much do you want to pay?" Because they wouldn't take anything for that. Because I said, "I'll do it for nothing if you like, as long as you shut up or something." You make a smart remark, and they might say, "Oh, $50 or $25," and so. And of course, ultimately, what I do would take over. It didn't matter what the money wasn't important. Actually, because I was always reminding myself that I'd have to live with it. That's why I always tell students, don't sign your early works. You come back to regret it. I remember doing a sculpture for my sister's wedding, I think it was, and he was a Maori hero, and he was responsible for fishing up New Zealand. If he didn't have a muscle, I put one there. So he was so he was so many muscles that he couldn't move anyway, and but he looked good at the time, and every time I looked at it, I'd sort of turn away, and oh, I said, for goodness sake, don't tell anyone I did that. And I said, I'll swap you for another one. And she said, no, you'll leave it alone because you're going to burn it.
Yeah.
But, that's what happens when you're in the early stages. But after a while, you start developing and you only put in things that are relevant. You don't put in things, because they look pretty or whatever.
Yeah, you learn as you go.
Yeah, oh, that's right. And those 4 earlier ones, and they were all done for friends. Mind you, they're the only ones that asked me to do anything anyway. Till later on you acquire a reputation of some kind, and then people can afford themselves giving you commissions.
So each of the 4 works is in reference to a Māori story, right? A pūrākau.
Yes. The thing is, though, with those 4 works, I didn't select them; they were selected by whoever was responsible. I've always been interested in birds and fish and so on, and the children of Tangaroa was flounder because I've always liked the stingrays and rays, the shapes of the triangular shapes of those particular fish. That was a development when I started to play around with triangles and so on. And once I decided on a subject when I was doing it for them, then it took over, and then I had to consider everything on there that was there for a reason, and not just because it looked pretty.
And had you been carving from the very start, or was that a later development as well?
No, I started doing a lot of painting old houses and things. But after a while, I was helping when I was lecturing at teachers' college. I helped a friend of mine who was my boss, the head of the department. I helped him with his sculptures. He was doing molds and so on, and doing bronzes, and became very interested in 3-dimensional stuff. And so that's how I turned from painting into carving, and then ultimately into outdoor sculptures and so on. And one of my original ones was a cartoonist. I did cartoons for papers. There's another very famous New Zealand cartoonist called Murray Ball. He and I worked on the same paper, and in the Manawatu, Palmerston North. He did the everyday cartoons and so on, and I just the sports and the weekend. I don't do any more cartoons and so on. I just, just developed into doing mainly stainless steel work.
And of course, Brett really followed in your footsteps, also becoming a carver and a sculptor, right?
We sort of have words with each other sometimes, and I comment on some of his sculptures, and he comments on mine, and we just smile. I always have a go at him because he does such big works, and they always say that you can always tell who his friends are. They've all got bad backs, such kind of stuff, you know.
Yeah.
I get amazed that he does some very, very fine stuff as well, but some of his work is quite impressive, really.
And it's lovely how close your works are in the Biennale as well, right?
Yes.
That they're looking at each other almost.
Well, that's right, you know. I would like to have gone over, but I've been to Venice before, but, I'd like to have gone over this time. But my wife, Brett's mother, you know, she's been married for 67 years, and she has dementia. So I go up and see her every day in the afternoons, and it's very hard to come to terms with that.
Mm.
But I've been very grateful to the woman who commissioned my very first works. My wife, for instance, I came in, she said, "What's wrong?" And because I was deep in thought, you know, I think, but I said, "I've got to do a stained glass window," and I said, "I'll design it, but I don't know who to make it." I said, "The last one I made was I designed was in Wellington." And of course, I had no control over the thing that finished. And she said, "I'll make it." Of course, my wife was a phys ed school teacher, you know, very keen on sport. And I said, "What do you mean you'll make it?" And she said, "I'll go to evening class, learn how to make stained glass windows." She did. So she made it.
Wow.
When it was erected and so on, you know, I was so pleased and proud of it. I said, "You should do more of the stained glass window." She sort of looked at me and said, "I've got more to do with my life than muck around with main stained glass windows." So she never did any more. Mind you, I haven't done any more stained glass windows either because I never sort of encouraged. I wasn't that keen on them. But you know, I've always been very grateful to the woman that have played a part in helping my career because they were wanting to see fountains and sculptures. You know, in New Zealand, all the men were involved in rugby, racing, and beer. I'm still amazed at the number of people that are really crazy on rugby and sport in New Zealand. That's the way we are, I suppose.
Yeah, like you say, I mean, it's amazing to have come this far as well, to be in the Venice Biennale and to have so many Māori artists in the Biennale as well. It's the most that there've ever been.
Yeah.
And how then? Because you've shown a lot of work overseas throughout your career, right?
Yes. And I've been, I've been a judge here, there, and in Zimbabwe and places like that. And but it's enabling me to meet all kinds of people and just to realise that ordinary people are very much the same in every country. They just want the same things.
Mm.
And I just can't believe what's happening in Palestine and these places now. People killing each other. It's just terrible.
Yeah.
But to me, all these cultures merge together and form a new group because it's the way we are. I was one of the two people who designed the 1990 symbol for the Treaty of Waitangi, the treaty signed in 1840 by New Zealand and the British government. You know, I chose a kotuku, which is the herring, which is not a New Zealand bird, but it's a foreign bird that come and made its home in New Zealand. And that's what we all are, the people are just like the kotuku. We come from India, China, Scotland and Sweden and these places to New Zealand. And then we're just something special.
Oh, well, and we always have a home to come home to
Yeah,
as well.
yeah. Oh, that's right.
So you have a show opening at Te Uru next week or this weekend?
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's looking at your art from a large chunk of your career.
Well, the thing that makes it special for me is I've been around a while, and to me, the most important things in life are your family and your friends.
Mm.
Now, this particular exhibition is a lot of my old friends, because the few remaining ones are still coming to this exhibition. So it'd be great.
I was wondering, with the show at Te Uru, and you're celebrating your very long career, do you think the international recognition of New Zealand art has changed? Have you seen it change?
Oh, yes, it has. But one of our big problems, of course, is there are only 5 million New Zealand. But as long as we have our work displayed in places like Venice, then you make people aware of what's happening in New Zealand or something. If you don't have them in these places, that's what they're going to say. Where's New Zealand?
I think, having all these artists be at Venice is such a huge encouragement to so many young artists.
Yeah, well, that's great. And even when I look at some of the work, and it's to me, it's always one of the things I've reminded artists or students of mine: never criticise artworks. Just keep them to yourself and try and figure out what they're trying to do. But you don't help the artist by criticising and ridiculous, because we all think differently. Each one of us has a different idea of what should be. We're all different. Well, I like to think we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just that I just want to make sure that all the young people are not discouraged by all the knockbacks they'll probably get, when they're doing their art. And, so things like that to me personally, are far more important than art. It's about people living. Yeah.
Yeah. You've been listening to Crossing Currents, Aotearoa New Zealand Artists in Venice, an original podcast series by Contemporary Hum. Listen to Crossing Currents wherever you get your podcasts, or visit contemporaryhum.com for each episode, along with a transcript and images. Our thanks to Creative New Zealand for their support, Hamish Peterson for editing and mixing, Matariki Williams for cultural advisory, and Emma Kanyuk for design. Kia ora.